This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is the show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. And as a reminder, I'm here to help you understand your dreams. So if you have a dream that's got you stumped, email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. I can help you interpret your dream or answer any general questions you may have about dreams. So again, my email is debbie@dreampowerradio.com. Well, it's the holiday season, or as some may call it, eating season. This is the time of year when we sit down to big meals, including things like turkey with stuffing, honey-baked ham, candied yams with marshmallows, macaroni and cheese. Oh, and did I mention the desserts? Pumpkin pie, pecan pie, apple pie a la mode, tons of sugar cookies. God, I'm getting hungry just talking about all this. But, and here's the question. Are these the foods that we should be eating to have a dream life? We're going to find out as I talk with holistic health coach Joey Sutton. Joey knows firsthand that eating the wrong foods can cause all kinds of preventable diseases. It was her personal suffering and watching family members die from unhealthy food choices that led her to study Oriental medicine and integrative nutrition. She now coaches and teaches on how to live a healthy, pain-free life. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Joey.
Hi, Debbie. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, I'm honored to have you here. So, Joey, what's wrong with the holiday foods I mentioned?
You know, it's interesting, Debbie. I think a lot of people believe that in order to be healthy, they have to not eat the foods that they love. So I'm kind of hoping, that's a new word I just made up, hoping, for your listeners that I can provide a inspiring way to eat that doesn't mean giving up all the things that you love. And so to give the punchline to everything I'd like everyone to know right away, the punchline is it's not necessarily what you're eating, it's the quality of what you're eating that's the issue. Sadly, and when I teach classes, almost the first thing I say to people is, I'm so sorry I have to teach this class, because I'm about to say something that some of you know, and some of you don't know, and some of you prefer not to know. And what I'd like to say is, most of our food supply, our conventional food supply, is highly toxic. Our animals are being raised in factories. They're being fed genetically modified feed. There's weed killer in the corn that they're eating. There's antibiotics and growth hormones. A lot of our plant supply is dosed with pesticides, herbicides, and fungicides. So I don't have anything against eating animals. The American Indian in me, and I'm not American Indian, but the aspect of me that relates, blesses an animal if I eat it, thanks it for its part in the circle of life. The vegetables, I love vegetables, but half of our vegetables now, if you compare them to the nutrient list from 50 years ago, have lost almost half of their nutrition. So if we're eating quality food, farm-raised animals, free-range animals, fish that's wild caught, not being fed grain in a fish farm, if we're eating vegetables that aren't sprayed with pesticides and toxic fertilizers, or deficient fertilizers, fertilizer isn't necessarily toxic, but deficient fertilizers, if we're actually using organic means of growth and kindness and sustainable ways of eating, we can eat the things that we love without the toxic side effects. So that would be my very long answer to your first short question.
Oh, that's okay. No, we want the most complete answers that we can get. So in other words, you're saying that instead of getting a butterball turkey and store-bought regular old stuffing, if you've got an organic turkey and you got
Free range
organic turkey and you got stuffing that was made with non-GMO ingredients and was organic, that would be okay.
Well, and let's add a stuffing that's not only non-GMO and organic, but let's add a whole grain stuffing. So most stuffing is made from white bread that's dried and turned into these crispy little crumbles. And then we add all this yummy broth to it and reinvigorate it and make this nice mushy, yummy stuffing that we love, sauteed with veggies and things. So if I had my way, it would be a whole grain bread stuffing mix rather than a white bread stuffing mix. One of the problems with our current day food supply is that we have a highly overfed but undernourished society. We have the largest percentage of obesity we've ever had. And now adult onset diabetes is now called type 2 diabetes instead of adult onset, because children, very young children, before they even hit double digits, are now in the diabetic ranges. And this is generally, it's not just because they're eating fat, it's because they're eating too many unrefined carbohydrates and they're hungry. So it used to be that the swollen Ethiopian bellied child was the vision of malnutrition, but now it's the American obese human that is the face of malnutrition. So we're overfed and undernourished. And one of the reasons so many of us are overweight isn't because we're just food addicts, isn't just because we have no willpower, isn't because we're just addicted to food. I truly believe one of the reasons that we have this huge overfed, undernourished nation is because we're being fed highly processed foods that are deficient in the whole grain or a non-toxic version of that. It's missing so many nutrients that we keep eating the same foods in order to try to find the nutrition like a needle in a haystack, and it's not in there. So having said that, on the tails of stuffing, the reason I'm saying whole grain is because the regular stuffing is made from white flour, and white flour quickly transforms into sugar in our bodies. Now, our body can only store a certain amount of sugar in our blood, brain, and muscle and liver. And once that storage is full, and it doesn't take too much, that excess carbohydrate in our diet, especially refined carbohydrate, gets transformed into triglycerides, which is the kind of fat that pads our bellies and squeezes our organs. And that messes with our insulin, and this causes diabetes, and this causes obesity. And so having said that, is anyone inspired to try to find a whole grain organic stuffing mix? And let's add to that, how about we eat that stuffing, but how about we don't eat as much of it? Let's just reduce the size of those carbohydrates that we're eating. It doesn't mean you have to eat no carbohydrates. We can't sustain that. That's an unsustainable model to not eat these foods that we love, but we can certainly eat less of them. And we can certainly chew them well and be present to them. And then we can certainly digest them better in this way.
Yeah, I was going to talk to you about the chewing, because I know one of the things that you stress is you can eat smaller portions if you spend the time chewing the food properly. You talk about that a bit?
Oh, that's my favorite topic. Okay. So, sometimes when people interview me, they say, what's the one thing if you left, and I think we may have done this on another interview, Debbie, where you said, what's the one takeaway? If there's one thing you could leave the listeners with, what would it be? My one takeaway is chew your food to a paste, whatever it is. Whatever it is, if you chew it to a paste, you're going to reduce the size of the particles that land in your stomach. You're going to decrease the amount of excess work that your stomach has to do to tear those particles apart. You're going to reduce the amount of food you can actually eat, because chewing takes a long time. Now, I'm not talking about chewing like a cow. I'm not talking about slow chewing. I'm talking about thorough chewing. So when we thoroughly chew, it takes us longer to chew. But consider this, and I love this idea. We could eat half the amount of food that we're eating now in the same amount of time that we eat the whole plate. Only we could digest 95% of it instead of 35% of it if we're chewing it to a paste. This way, we're actually saving money, because some people say, I can't buy organic food, and I can't buy free range this, and I can't afford the free range eggs. But what if we were eating less of them, so that, let's say, those meats and those eggs cost twice as much as a conventionally raised or grown, animal egg or food stuff, but we only eat half of it. So if it costs twice as much, but we're only eating half of it, and we're chewing it to a paste, and we're digesting 95% of it instead of digesting 35% of it. By the way, these are not provable percentages. I'm giving you a perspective range. But if you chew well, you digest way more. If you don't chew well, you're going to have these hunks of food are going to go into your stomach. Most of us have really overworked stomach acid. So hunks of food are going to pass through the intestinal wall, and food's not supposed to pass through the intestinal wall. Nutrients are supposed to pass through the intestinal wall. So if our stomach acid is too weak, then we're not going to break our food down into nutrients. We're going to end up slipping through some of this food that gets into the intestinal wall. And then that food gets into the bloodstream. And then the body launches an immune attack on a bagel because it wasn't supposed to be there in the form of a bagel. And now we're exhausted, tired at 3 o'clock and can't open our eyes because our body is so busy launching this false attack on these, invaders that aren't going to do any harm except for the fact that they shouldn't be in there in the first place. So if that doesn't inspire you to chew to a paste, let me inspire you a little bit further. Chewing to a paste, again, will reduce the amount of food that you eat. It will increase the absorption. It will increase energy. It will decrease allergies, and it will also help you to lose weight. So eat what you want to eat. If you didn't change any of your diet and you ate exactly as you're eating now, but you chewed to a paste and you ate a little bit less, you would end up losing weight and still enjoying yourself and maybe even being healthier and having less allergy attack. Here's the other thing, one more topic. It takes 20 minutes for the hormone called leptin to tell our brain that we are full. So if we can eat a huge meal in 10 minutes, which a lot of people can, chew, swallow, chew, swallow. People are swallowing huge hunks of food. So if we're chewing to a paste, it's going to slow down the amount of time and the amount of food that our bodies can intake, giving our bodies enough time to tell our brains that we're full so that we stop wolfing down a whole plate and we still get to eat what we want, but we ate less and absorbed more. That was the point I was trying to make.
Which is wonderful. And one other thing that I want to add, just as an aside, is that organic food also tastes better. I live in the country now, and it took me a while, but a couple of months ago, I met my neighbor who's got an organic farm where they raise chickens and pigs and sheep and cattle. I mean, the whole range of it. But it's all the animal side, not on the plant side. And but the first time I went up there, she gifted me with a dozen eggs, and these were like the most amazing eggs I'd ever seen. First of all, they weren't white or brown. They were some white and some brown ones, but there were blue ones and green ones, and these were all from different kinds of chickens, and just amazing. I mean, you could actually taste the difference. And
wasn't the yolk orange?
It was darker. I wouldn't call it like orange, like bright orange, but definitely darker than the yolks I was used to seeing. And so it does make a difference. With that, we are going to take a short break. We're speaking with holistic health coach Joey Sutton all about eating healthy, and we'll be right back. What do Thomas Jefferson, Elias Howe, and Paul McCartney have in common? They all understood the value of dreams, and as a result, the ideas, inventions, and creations from their dreams affect us to this day. What great ideas are you leaving on your pillow at night? Sign up for a complimentary consultation at my website, thedreamcoach.net, and discover why your dreams are a terrible thing to waste.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, and welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're speaking with holistic health coach Joey Sutton. Joey, you're talking about, different ways of eating, eating healthy, and especially chewing our food properly. But you also said that we don't have to wholesale throw away all of our food and start over from scratch. And I think you call this leveling up. So can you go a little bit more into about what you mean by leveling up?
Yes. Oh, I love that you remember that. Leveling up it's a term that I coined from watching my son play video games. You know, I thought he wasn't always racing to the end of the game. He was interested in reaching new levels, and you couldn't reach those levels unless you collected a certain amount of things or accomplished a certain amount of things. And I as I watched him, I felt like I was watching these little dopamine hits of joy and satisfaction and accomplishment happen in him. And I thought, so many of us are racing to the end of a goal. But I don't think that healthy eating, I don't think there's a top of the mountain to healthy eating. I think that there's progress. You know, it's in the Jewish religion, and maybe you know this number, Debbie, I don't know if you know, but in the Jewish religion, there's over 500 Orthodox rules. Now, if you were stepping into the Jewish religion all of a sudden, and you heard in order to be Orthodox, you had to follow these 500 rules, you'd run away screaming. I happen to have an uncle that is a rabbi, and he said, there's a lot of rules, but you just take on one at a time. Take on the ones that speak to you. Try them on a little bit at a time. And so I put these couple of things together, and I thought, okay, well, I want to eat healthier. So maybe next time, you know, either I or I'll teach my clients, let's level up your products one at a time. When you run out of those white flour tortillas, let's level up to an organic tortilla. And the next time, let's level up to a whole wheat flour tortilla, or let's level up to a whole grain tortilla or a organic corn tortilla. So we just keep leveling up quality. So you get to keep eating the things that you love, but you level up that quality. And I think this is a more sustainable way to make change. Otherwise, people use the word healthy like it's a definitive word that you reach. And you know, I don't want to be healthy because I don't want to give up my cake. And I don't want to be healthy because I don't want to give up my soda. And so forget it. I'm not going to do that. Being healthy is too much work. It's not too much work if you just do one little thing at a time. You know, Lao Tzu said the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So for me, the first step is leveling up whatever ingredients you've got. So after this podcast or this video that we're watching, you might want to ask yourself, what can I level up for the holidays? What product do I now use that's refined and not organic? And what can I make a whole food and an organic food? So it's not all at once. And also level up your chewing. Most of us have been chewing the same exact way since before we had words, language, and teeth. So learning to chew is actually a primal change that's not easy for a lot of people. So I also want you to level up your compassion and your patience for yourself. Because as you start concentrating on your food and you're chewing and you notice this pattern in your mouth that goes 1, 2, 3, swallow, and you think, oh crap, I can't do this, I suck. No, consider that exactly where you are is baseline. That's normal and that's what's expected. And every single time that you have consciousness and you chew your food to a paste and you swallow it, you collected a basket. You finished a project. You know, in video game terms, you captured something, you collected something. You get to have that dopamine rush, that I accomplished something rush of having done it right once. And because you celebrate every time you do it right once, then you're inspired to do it twice. But if we beat ourselves up for every time we didn't do it well, we would never be inspired to do it because we would never be able to accomplish this goal. So that's why I like leveling up, and I hope that wasn't too confusing.
Oh, not at all. No, it really wasn't. And the great thing about that is that it creates a new habit. You do it once, and then you do it that second time, and then you do it that third time, and then you keep doing it, and then it becomes a habit, and then it becomes second nature after a while. And it's like, you know, in dream work, one of the most important things that I stress is awareness. And what you're talking about is being aware of what we eat, because so much of the time we eat subconsciously. You know, we'll just grab what's handy, not really think about what we're eating. And I guess what you're saying is that if we take that time to really think about it, then we could decide, do I really want to eat this? Is this something, am I eating just because I need to have something in my mouth, or is it good for you? Is it going to be something that's going to be good for my body?
Well, I think you just brought up a really important point. And when you said, is this really good for me? Whatever, you know, is what I have in my mouth just there because I'm bored, or is it good for me? Or, you know, the other question is, do I even like it? you know, in my studies, there's something that was called memory eating, where we eat something because it contains good memories, like macaroni and cheese. Or for me, good memories are Pop-Tarts. I was not allowed to have them in my house growing up. I grew up in a bakery, so we didn't have those kinds of baked goods. But, you know, the memory of Pop-Tarts at a friend's house, a toasted cinnamon Pop-Tart, just brings a crazy smile to my face. Now, there's ingredients in that particular product that are highly refined and on the side of dangerous. And so my teacher said to me once, if you're craving something, first of all, there's lots of reasons that we have cravings, but let's just say, for instance, we're going to eat that thing we crave. If you're craving something, take a small bite and chew it to a paste and be present and taste it. Because if you're eating a memory, it's different than what you're going to taste if you're present to it. So as you're speaking about mindfulness, mindful eating is the same thing. You know, we can be afraid, we can have a fearful thought, or if, you know, we can get triggered in our home for some reason, or by a person or a boss or someone on the road or someone in the market. We can get triggered into an old pain. But if we're mindful, we can look around and say, my feet are on the ground. There's air around me. I can breathe. There's no one harming me. The fear is an old feeling. It's actually not happening right now. And we can presence ourselves back into a state of sanity. So it's the same thing with mindful eating. If we eat something that was a memory food and we're chewing it and chewing it and chewing it and thinking, oh my God, I'm so present. This tastes so good. Well, there might be something in it that you need. Now, for me, what I'm hoping for you is if you're eating a Pop-Tart, that you're not eating a Pop-Tart, but that if you are eating it, that you chew it to a paste. Or if you have an opportunity to level up ingredients to something that's similar to a Pop-Tart, but it's not a Pop-Tart. So when I crave a Pop-Tart, I will have a piece of organic, whole grain, gluten-free bread. I'll slather on some vegan, organic, cultured butter, and I will sprinkle onto it some cinnamon, and then I'll sprinkle some raw honey. So I get my Pop-Tart fix through leveled up ingredients that can satisfy the flavors I was looking for, but also satisfy my desire for health. So anyway, one more thing I just want to say, when I was a young teenager, I was addicted to chocolate. Now, growing up in a bakery, my first 4 food groups were butter, white flour, white sugar, and chocolate. So I was addicted to chocolate. I remember driving down the road one day and thinking, I have to have chocolate. I have to have chocolate. And I noticed in myself that I didn't like this addictive energy that was in me, that I have to feeling, because chocolate is not a have to. Water is a have to. You know, protein's a have to. Vegetables are a have to. But chocolate is not a have to. Although I have to say, J.K. Rowling, that wrote the Harry Potter series, she gave chocolate to people after they ran into these scary dementors. And I thought that was very smart, good medicine, because in raw cacao, it's very high antioxidant quality. However, chocolate's not a have to. So here I am driving down the road, having this addictive craving for chocolate. And I said to myself, I don't like that I'm having this addictive feeling, but I'm going to get myself some chocolate, and I'm going to be very present to it. So I'm going to tell you where I stopped. I stopped at McDonald's. Now, I was a teenager, and that was a long time ago, but I stopped at McDonald's and I got myself a chocolate swirled ice cream cone. And I'm in my car, I went through the drive-thru, and I'm driving, and I said, okay, the only rule that I have for this chocolate, if I'm going to engage in my addictive desire, is to be present. So I took a lick, and I was present, and I have a really good palate, so I could tear all the flavors apart in my mouth. And I could taste the fat, and I could taste this milky something flavor. And then I got to the chocolate. I was able to tear the chocolate flavor apart from the sugar and all those other ingredients. And it was so bitter. And I thought, I'm eating a memory. This doesn't taste good. And I pulled over to a trash can on the side of the road and I threw it out. Never went back for one of those again. Now, do I still eat chocolate? Heck yeah. But I eat organic, raw cacao. I try to get, chocolate that's made with either coconut sugar or an alternative sweetener. I've even found chocolate chips that are sweetened with stevia. So I have these leveled up ways that I do it. And I usually take little teeny bites of my chocolate and chew it to a paste and roll it around my mouth. And I'm very, very present to it. And I love it. And I don't need a lot of it anymore. But I did want to illuminate that story because I feel like it shows the difference between eating a food that we're craving for a reason and eating a memory, and then being conscious enough to decide whether or not we want to continue to eat that, if it's actually meeting the need or not. And maybe there's another way to meet that warm memory feeling in a different way, in a less unhealthy way even.
I was never really conscious of memory eating, but now that I am, I'm going to think about more of that. But speaking of memory eating, let's say somebody who's listening to this show wants to create new memories by having at least one new holiday recipe that's healthy and delicious and all the things that you want a good holiday meal to be. So do you have any recipes that you could share that are tasty, healthy, and not too involved? And
Okay, yes. So I have some very good leveled up recipes that I am providing for you and your listeners. See if I have them memorized. One of them is a vegan, gluten-free, though it doesn't have to be gluten-free, pumpkin pie. It's delicious and satisfying. And the ingredients are very simple. And I like to use a pre-made gluten-free crust. And yes, it's got refined grains in it, but guess what? I'm also not a fan of being perfect. So you like that about me as a coach, that I don't require perfection. So that's one of the ways I make a leveled up version of a pumpkin pie. Personally, I can no longer eat wheat, and I can no longer eat dairy, and recovering my own body from lots of injuries and illnesses and allergies. And so I get to be healthy today, but I still don't eat certain things because they still do hurt me. So I will do a gluten-free crust that's pre-made. I do have a recipe for one. I can't remember if I added it to the one I'm sending you, Debbie, or not, but let's just stick with the pre-made pie filling because you said minimal ingredients and make it easy. So there's that. There's also a pumpkin pie protein shake. And pumpkin isn't just for particular holidays. You know, I've got these 2 pumpkin recipes that I'm sending to you, but pumpkin is a seasonal food, and that's why we eat them at those holiday times. So you
are going to make it available to anybody who wants them. We'll talk about that more in a minute. I do want to ask you very briefly about your ebook, which is called 5 Foods That Will Help You Lose Weight and Stabilize Energy Naturally. Why did you write this?
Yes. I think that in this busy technological era, most of us are inundated with information, and we all want better relationships. We all want to feel healthier. We all want more energy. So it felt to me like if we could put the spotlight on a few healthy things that we could do, a few healthy ways that we could level up, that would be an inspiration to do more. So there's a good amount of information in this little book. You can also skip around some of the information and just quickly hone into what those foods are, depending on the kind of person you are, whether you want lots of information or you just want the blip. You have access to all those. So there's big pictures of this is the healthy food. And if you're the kind of person that wants to understand why, then you can read about that. So it's a simple, beautiful book, I think, that inspires people to think a little bit more about a few healthy ingredients and the difference it can make. Great.
Well, Joy, I can't believe that this time has just sped by so fast and so much information.
Oh my gosh.
I just have time for one last question, which is how can people find out about this book, find out about you and your services and even those recipes we talked about?
Thank you for asking, Debbie. So if you go to my website, my business name is the same as my website. So my business name is Love Your Way to Health, which is another great topic we have to talk about another time, Debbie. So it's www.loveyourwaytohealth.com. And my email is the same. It's joe@loveyourwaytohealth.com. And if you go to my website, as soon as you get to my website, within a few seconds, there'll be a pop-up window and you have access to sign up for my free ebook. As soon as you do that, that will also put you on my mailing list. So if you'd like to stay there, great. And if not, you can easily unsubscribe. And I have a recipe page. And there are 4 recipes that I added for our conversation today, Debbie. And sadly, for some reason, the other 2 have left my brain, but they're all on my recipe page under desserts. Oh, there's a dip. There's a dip that I'm giving you the recipe to. It's a jalapeno cashew cream. And the other one is roasted broccoli and cauliflower. So these are wonderful holiday foods. Yay, I remembered. These are wonderful holiday foods that aren't adding way too much fat, and they add extra beautiful nutrients. And you have a yummy pumpkin pie, which turns out to be a delicious high nutrient value meal. And so you can get everything through my website. You can contact me through my website. And of course, they can find me through YouTube. So thank you, Debbie.
Oh, well, thank you, Joey, for being on Dream Power Radio today. We've been speaking with holistic health coach Joey Sutton on how to eat healthy this holiday season. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.